Hello everyone, Brian here, back with a video on the Aedes Ars, Aedes Ars. I'm not sure how you pronounce that, as I noted last time. Maybe somebody can correct me. But anyway, these ceramic architectural model kits, and I thought today I would spend a little bit of time talking about the substructure and what one looks like as it's going together. So this model that I mentioned last time is San Pedro de la Nave. It's a early medieval church in Spain that in the 1930s was moved from its original location when they were building a dam for fear of flooding to a new location. It is on the short list of World Heritage Sites with the UN. Maybe it will be selected. But I thought this would be a good opportunity to take a look at what does the cardboard model look like when it goes together, which is the substructure. So what comes in the kit is this base, and I went to the local Home Depot and got some press board and cut it out to mount that on. And then you see that the model goes together. Everything is lettered, and it's pretty easy to figure out, and there are diagrams as well. But you have the E section here. Here's the top of E. You've got the top of C and the C section here. Each of these two additions off the side are sections. You can see, looking in the door here, there is the E section there, and so it's all outlined and show you how it goes together. It goes together with white glue, which comes with the kit, and everything goes on with that white glue. The tiles, the wood pieces that you've got here. I'll build doors eventually out of wood that was provided. Everything is just done with white glue, which, unlike brown glue that you have for, say, woodworking, the reason why that glue has a light tannish or brown tinge to it is it's got a retardant in it. So this white glue actually sets pretty quickly, meaning you can lay down tiles fairly quickly and then sand them almost immediately and they won't move. So a couple of tips on putting these together. So when I put this together, I glued the whole thing up, and this particular one took about 2.5 hours or so. The first thing you do is you lay out the pieces themselves, and certain pieces like these windows here and this doorway have a cross-shaped pattern on them that indicates they need to be cut out with a hobby knife. And so you lay them down and you cut all of those out. These windows I had to cut out. All of that gets cut out, and then I put it all together and I put the roof on. A few things that I would do differently next time I do this. First of all, I wouldn't put the roof on yet. And that is because I put the whole thing together, and then when I went out on the web and took a look at pictures of the actual building, I found that there were a number of windows in the building that actually didn't come in the kit. So these little slit windows here, which I think give it a lot of character, were not in the kit. These side windows here were not. This window here and this window here was not. And actually, even on the front, these two windows here were not in the kit. And so I put the whole thing together and then realized I had a whole bunch of windows that I wanted to incorporate in the model that I couldn't incorporate into the model. If I did the whole thing again, or when I do the next model, before I even put it together, I will go look at the photographs and I'll mark out the positions on the model where there are any missing details, especially windows that I want to work with. But even if I had left the roof off, I could have put some thin pieces of press board down in here and actually cut those out with an X-Acto knife. But the fact that I glued it all up means I was sort of stuck. And so what did I do? Well, I grabbed a black Sharpie and I colored in the windows, and hopefully that'll be enough. By the time I clean it up, they'll look like windows and it'll be fine. The other thing I did with the Sharpie, and you can see this a little bit on this side, is to make sure that when I was done, if the tiles don't line up perfectly, that I don't see any white from the cardboard. I went around the edge of the cardboard with the Sharpie and the edges up here. I'll do the same thing eventually up here and here so that the windows are completely surrounded by black. And so then even if the tiles don't get exactly up to the edge of the window, you're not going to see that. Other things I would have done a little differently, you see up here in this course, this roof slants down just slightly. I didn't get that quite right. And so when I put these tiles in, even trying to keep them lined up against the line I've been given here, it slopes downward slightly, and even sloping down slightly, I've got this gap here between these two things. And you see, a gap up here. When I put one of these together next time, I'm going to be very careful to get it as straight and true as I possibly can, because you're using all of these brick lines here. You're stacking from the bottom up with your tiles, and so everything should stay level, but they're a way for things to get slightly off kilter, and so you rely upon those lines to keep everything straight and true, and if the building is off kilter, it's harder to do that. The other thing is occasionally when I'm putting the tiles together, I want to push them a little bit on the building to get the glue to flatten out. And if I didn't have the roofs on here, on occasion when I want to do that, it would have been easier to reach in and pinch those together. So I don't know if I'd put the roof on next time until I'm absolutely forced to do so. In terms of construction, so I built all of this in the front up, right to the doors, and I hesitated at the doorways, didn't want to do these arches yet with the trapezoidal pieces, which required a lot of sanding, and so I just kept going up here rather than building the back. And that led to this situation up here where I'm going across there and I'm looking at how I'm lining up and I'm starting to think, wait a minute, when this gets built up to that level, is it gonna meet, or am I gonna have sections that don't quite come together right? And once I realized I was heading down that way, I immediately came around to this side and I began building the courses up. And I think what I've concluded is the best way to go about this is to build the whole model up level by level so that you don't have to worry if you're going to have sections that aren't going to quite meet up properly. And so this is what I'm doing on the back side now as I'm starting to build this up, and I'm just going back and forth until I'm up to the level I need to be at. The exception to that is the arches, because I've got to sand around the arches here, and so that all needs to be in place. I began putting on the wood roofs over here. This gap I have here is okay. This will be covered by tile ultimately, and so you've got a little wiggle room to play with this stuff. So that is putting together the cardboard parts of the model. This little one was the same way, obviously a much simpler model than this was, and so I didn't encounter any of those problems and didn't really have time to think about them. So I think that's good enough for now. In the next video, I'll talk a little bit about the placement of the tiles themselves and some of the tools I'm working with here as I put this together. To do this, all we used was an X-Acto knife for the most part and the white glue. No sophisticated tools there. So, thank you for joining me, and look for me soon again. Bye-bye.